Hello, Gwilyn, mate. Yeah, it's been a little while since I've seen you. In fact, last week I had an interloper on the podcast. That Neil Lampert bloke stood in for you, and we did a podcast about CPTPP. So
It always worries me when I find these things. And no, I did
you
see
did know
that.
that. You did know that,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry I wasn't there. That means we've probably done the same number of podcasts now because he stood in for you once or twice
He,
as
he
well.
has stood in for me a couple of times, yeah, yeah, and he's done for you a couple of times now. So we're probably even Stevens in terms of the times we've cheated on one another.
Well, sounds like a challenge to me. Um, we have met up.
We have met up, yeah, we have, yeah.
That was nice. I think that was most largely unpodcastable, but it's always good to catch up in the
Yeah,
real
we,
world.
we yeah we probably shouldn't talk too much about that conversation.
Set Guildford to rights though. That was
It was,
yeah,
yeah.
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 So, Lee, any news from you? Anything interesting happened in your life
But
recently?
this is, of course, entirely wasted on a podcast because it's audio only. I don't know if you can see that, Gwilym, but that's an award.
Oh, it is. Look, that's your local squash club, isn't it? Is that honorary secretary of the year? Was that what it
No,
was?
no, it's the
No.
MEMCOM Membership Association CEO Leadership Award.
What have you got it?
Have I got it? I don't know. I think someone left it on a table, and I was wine sweeping at the end of the night, and I saw it there, so it came home with me.
No, congratulations. That's a huge award. Who are you
Oh
up
yeah, thank
against?
you. Yeah, it's a really really important one to me. Yeah, I was quite moved, quite touched.
I'm not surprised. But who's the competition? We're talking some big players here, aren't we?
I mean, there's not a competition as such. It's, you've got what 4,500 membership association chief execs in the country, and you get about 14 people nominated each year. That goes down to a short list of five or six, and then you're judged by a group of your peers. And that's the thing I think that makes it nice is it's other chief execs who are sort of at the top of their game who make the decision. Yeah, no, really chuffed, really chuffed.
You started off modest, Lee, but you ended up pretty clear cut win mentality. Good on you. It's well deserved. As will become clear from the
I mean,
CPP
we had a great year,
stuff.
hadn't we?
You did.
We had a great year. We had sort of seen off the pandemic, and we sorted out the CPTPP accession and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, if I didn't win it in a year like that, I was never gonna win it as much as I've deserved this for the whole of my career.
It also looks very heavy.
It weighs a ton. I'm not allowed to have it on a mantelpiece or anything at home because if it falls over, it will kill the dog or go straight to the floorboards.
And that's why I got a tortoise with a good shell.
Yeah,
But
no,
that's enough
absolutely. Yeah,
enough banter on that. We've done tortoise.
wears his hard hat everywhere he goes.
Lee Davies and Gwilyn Roberts are the two IPs in a pod, and you are listening to a podcast on intellectual property, brought to you by the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys.
We probably ought to crack on with the podcast, shouldn't we? Because it's a bit rude. We've got a guest sat waiting in the wings, thinking, "What are these guys on about?" Ken, hi. How are you, Ken?
Good. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for having me. Hi, Lee. Hi, Gwilym. It's such a pleasure to be here, and congratulations on your award. I'm the CEO myself. I've never got nominated, so that's very impressive.
So, do you want to do us a favour and introduce yourself to our listeners so that we all know who you are, if you don't mind?
Sure, of course. I'm Ken Seddon, the CEO of Lot Network. Just my quick background. I'm an IP attorney by trade. I originally started as an engineer at Motorola, went to law school. I ran Intel's patent prosecution group. From there, I went on to be the head of IP at a memory company called Mnemonics. I worked at Apple for several years during the smartphone wars. And before becoming the CEO of Lot, I was the vice president of IP of ARM out of Cambridge.
Oh, yeah. No, well. Welcome to the podcast. And Gwilym tells me that we're going to be talking about patent trolls, and he also tells me that they're not hairy, scary creatures that live under a patent bridge. Is that right?
No, they're not. They're very sophisticated entities with lots of money, causing a lot of impact in the legal world. That's for sure.
So Gwilym, I'm going to let you drive a little bit if that's okay, because this is your world. I'm going to take a little bit of a back seat.
Enjoy. You sit back on your award.
Nice to see you do some work for a change.
Yeah, Ken. I mean, we've chatted many times. It's great to see you again. Probably we should start with, given that we have an audience of people who don't all kind of do patents day in day out, a little bit more about let's not call them trolls, maybe the non-practising entity. Oh, you give us your terminology. What's the problem that you're out to solve?
Yeah, the scientific term, I guess you'd call it, is non-practicing entities, sometimes called NPEs. or patent assertion entities, PAEs. They are very simply, it's lawyers in very expensive suits who partner with private money. It's usually funds or venture capitalists of some kind who have large sums of money. They go out and buy patents on the open market and look to assert them against companies using that very same technology, either to get a quick settlement out of them, to avoid the legal process, or they're looking for their big payday and a $100 million, $1 billion judgment against a large high-tech company.
Got any examples of some of the high-profile cases in that area?
Yeah, I mean, some of the big names that people hear about are Intellectual Ventures, of course. They were the first large-scale NPE that was out there. Acacia, Unilock, Dominion Harbor, IPNav. Those are just the organizations. Now, what happens, though, is that's the parent entity. What typically happens is these parent entities will be the ones that buy the patents. They will then form smaller LLCs, typically in Texas, who then actually assume the patents and go sue people. And those names no one's ever heard of. It's just the parent entities that people are more familiar with.
But these are, we'll get on to plenty more, but patent system allows you to sue people for infringement with patents. So do you want to talk us through why sometimes these practices are less useful to the system?
Yeah, it's and it's probably worth noting where the term patent troll came from. I mean, that's a term used by the high-tech industry that's being sued by these entities. But it's fair to be clear, there's nothing illegal or immoral about what these companies are doing. I mean, whoever owns a patent has the right to assert that patent against somebody they believe is infringing. And it gives them the ability to get an exclusion, perhaps, against that company for infringing their patent. And these entities are just simply buying patents that are available for sale and asserting them against companies, enforcing their rights. So it's nothing illegal about it. And the real irony of it is, if you look at last year's litigation, in the United States, there's about 2,400 patent lawsuits filed by these NPEs. And if you look at where did those patents come from, it's 87% of them actually came from an operating company. That's kind of the irony of this problem, is that it's operating companies that complain about these entities suing them, but yet it's the operating company community themselves that are selling most of the patents to these PAEs. They're successful at getting money with those lawsuits, and then they go around buying more patents, just repeating this vicious cycle.
And so you've created the LOT network. You didn't actually say what it stands for. So let's kick off with the acronym. What is it?
Sure. So LOT network is license on transfer. And to be clear, I'm not the one that created. I can't take credit for that. It was originally formed by Canon, Google, and Red Hat. They're the three entities that wrote the original agreement, formed the organization. They just asked me to be their CEO now, going on my 9th year, because of my familiarity with this problem, my experience as an IP attorney, and just the ability to reach out to the network of companies to invite them to join.
You're probably worth explaining how it works as well, because you've explained to me, and I do get it, but it always helps to hear it again, because it's quite clever the way you operate.
Yeah, so I think it's probably worth looking back, maybe giving a bit of an historical view to this. 20 years ago, PAEs, patent assertion entities, didn't really exist. It wasn't much of a problem. Then the U.S. economy went through a couple of recessions, and some of these patent assets got loose on the market. Historically, patents were not something that companies looked to sell. Companies used their patents to assert them against their competitors in operating company versus operating company litigation. They never really thought about monetizing them by selling them to somebody else. But this problem started to grow, and I think it really took off right after the 2008-2009 recession. A lot of companies went under, went bankrupt, were distressed. They were looking to generate cash any way they could. And that really opened up the floodgates for a lot of operating companies to sell their patents, either because they were desperate for cash, they were looking to, they had a surplus of patents maybe in certain areas, or maybe because of the recession, their business had a pivot and they had older technologies that they weren't going to be using anymore. So they were just looking to sell these assets out there. And that's what led to the huge uptick. I think at its peak around 2011, there was over 5,000 PAE lawsuits filed in the United States. And if you figure on average to defend yourself through trial against a case would cost you about $3 or $4 million, this became a very expensive issue. And so the high-tech industry for many years has been doing a lot of efforts with patent reform, whether it be through the AIA in the United States, through damages law, through 101 and IPRs trying to invalidate patents and question whether they're valid or not. The other tools that they were used, there are other organizations like RPX, AST, Unified, who were looking to solve the same problem, but they deal with the issues typically when the patents are already in the hands of the PAEs. You know, RPX, for example, they negotiate settlements on behalf of their membership. AST looks to buy the patents before they fall the hands of the PAEs. So basically, they engage in bidding wars to try to buy the patents. And then Unified files IPRs to try to invalidate the patent before the PAE can start its litigation campaign. But all of those entities are trying to deal with the issue at the highest friction point, where there's the greatest conflict, and the PAE has already invested a lot of money into those assets, and it's a typically very expensive solution. And so the high-tech industry basically realized that if we're the ones that are causing this problem, because we're the ones selling the patents, we should be the ones that fix it on our terms and conditions. So it was Google, Canon, and Red Hat that got together that started this idea that's basically a private ordered solution to solve this problem on their own terms and conditions. They don't feel like Congress or the White House or the Patent Office or the Supreme Court are really going to solve this issue. So it was the high-tech industry that solved it on its own terms and conditions through the lot agreement. And what the lot agreement very simply is, it's a 10-page agreement that all these companies sign that basically says, look, if any of my patents should ever fall into the hands of a PAE in the future, then and only then do the other members of the community receive this automatic free license. One of the important tenets of LOT is that we preserve all of the normal and traditional use of the patents. Patents are a very valuable asset for companies. My members regularly use their patents for defensive measures, to stop infringement with competitors by suing them, to participate in patent pools, do standard essential patent licensing, etc. So LOT is purely a defensive mechanism. It's a shield, basically, where this, through herd immunization, all these companies are basically saying, look, if any of my stuff, and let's just assume Lee, Gwilyn, and I are 3 companies in LOT. If I ever sell a patent to a patent troll, either directly or somehow it gets loose and it falls in the hands of the PAE, well, then Lee and Gwilyn's companies are going to get a free license to it. And they're never going to be harassed by that patent. And Lee and Gwilyn are making the same commitment to me. So it's this herd immunization to try to solve the problem.
So that, in terms of the actual mechanism, to be, in other words, yeah, Lee Davies, Gwilyn Roberts Technologies Incorporated, we got 1,000 patents. We joined the LOT network. And when another member of the LOT network then sells on some patents, effectively as a term of the sale, effectively, is a clause saying, and you can't ever assert these patents against these people. And that has to go into any onward sale. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, to be clear, it's not something that complicates the sale. It's when you join LOT, when your company joined, you're signing this license agreement. It's a non-exclusive, fully paid up perpetual license that simply attaches to your patent. So that in the future, if you ever sell it, if you ever trade it or do anything with it, transfer it anyhow, it doesn't matter how it gets there, but once it falls in the hands of the PAE, this conditional license comes into effect. There's nothing that you have to do as if you sell off one of your business units, there's nothing extra that you have to do to make this license effective. We're not putting any extra work on your legal department or your M&A department. You just simply sell those patents as you wish, and this license protection automatically travels with the patent.
How's it doing? How's the network doing?
Doing really well, thank you. It started in 2014 with the original 11 members, and we just broke 3,400 companies last week are now part of our organization. We're averaging about 3 companies a day are joining LOT. We now have the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th largest patent holders in the world, many from Europe. We have Bosch and Bayer and Volkswagen and Daimler, Barclays, Ocado. A lot of famous, prestigious IP organizations are part of our community. And collectively, our members now own just over 4 million patent assets. So when a company joins, they become immunized, if you will, to these 4 million patents. And within those 4 million assets, we have over 17% of all US patents are now part of this lot protection. That's 1 out of 6.
So just a quick question. So all of those names you just reeled off, big companies, big players, yeah, can presumably afford to put a little bit of money aside to support the network. Is there an altruistic element to this? Is there something you do perhaps for the smaller companies that aren't playing in that field?
Oh, no, absolutely. Because this is herd immunization. I mean, it only works if as everyone joins, the herd gets stronger and bigger and more assets and more companies are protected. So we wanted to make this an easy decision regardless of your size, which is why LOT was set up as a nonprofit organization, or not-for-profit organization. It's not about the money. And so actually all the large companies that are in our community, they're only paying $20,000 a year to be a member. But because we grew way faster than the board even anticipated, we are now able to make LOT free for any company with 25 million or less in annual revenue turnover. So effectively, the large companies that can afford it are subsidizing the cost and providing for the free NPE and vaccination for the smaller companies.
Yeah, got it.
And I would say of our 3,400 companies, probably close to 2,500 are startups, small little companies, half of which don't even own a patent, but they're joining purely for the defensive value of being part of LOT.
And how do they find out about the network? How do they come to know it's something that is of value to them?
That's why I'm here, quite honestly. Because we are a not-for-profit, I can't afford to have a blimp flying around Europe. I can't do ads on TV. And so a lot of this is just word of mouth. It's educating the wizards of our industry like yourself so that you can tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends and we help spread the word.
That's my questions done, Gwyn. I'm over to you again, mate.
You just like being called a wizard, didn't you?
I love being called a wizard, yeah. I'm going to go and get my wand.
You've talked about the states a lot. You know, you've got to mention, you threw in a lot of acronyms there, but I think people got the underlying point about AIA being a new act and IPRs being a tax on patents and all that kind of thing. I think you're American, Ken, I'm guessing here, but you sound kind of American to me. This is not just a US thing, though, is it? I mean, you're over here in Europe without the blimp, using the wizards of IP instead. But why? What do you think the problem or the risk is in Europe at the moment?
I think it's real, based on the feedback that what we're seeing from brokers and those that are buying patents. And we've heard comments with folks like from Acacia, David Pridham, who's at Dominion Harbor. All these entities are looking to buy assets, and you have to put yourself in their shoes for a moment to really just understand how they would think and why they would be attracted to the European market. I think a lot of this is driven by the UPC. A patent holder can now acquire a patent, asserted against a company and effectively get an injunction that affects all of Europe. That's a tremendous amount of revenue coverage, and that gives them a lot of leverage to negotiate a settlement or a license payment. So you're absolutely right. Historically, in the 20-year history of this problem, it was predominantly a U.S. issue. But I think with the UPC coming online, and I have to imagine the judges there are going to want to make clear the UPC is growing, get more business. And to do that, they're going to have to be plaintiff friendly. They're going to have to show that a patent holder coming to the UPC is going to have success. The more they do that, the more cases they'll be able to attract. And so we see already a lot of NPEs looking to buy assets, particularly German assets, to assert them in Germany using either the UPC or the bifurcation issue that exists there.
So do you reckon there's been action already? Has there been increased activity in buying up patents in that case?
Yeah, we're seeing it definitely on the patent purchase. It's a little too early to see yet on the litigation front yet. It takes a while to put these cases together. And I think a lot of folks are looking, I know pharma companies are the ones that have initially been relying on the UPC. I think they're just waiting to see some of those cases play out, but I do expect the UPC to be a hotbed of NPE activity.
I mean, if I could just chuck in my kind of penny's worth on the kind of the policy level issues here, that this use of the patent system does worry me a little bit. It's not what it's there for. Patent systems to stimulate innovation, and yes, the innovating company gets some reward by the sale, but usually because the innovation didn't work for them. So it's not kind of rewarding useful innovation, and of course then it falls into the hands of basically lawyers who see a way to do it. And that number you mentioned of 2,400 cases in the US that's terrifying. When you think that there's about 1,000 cases a year in Europe, that means there's 2.5 times as many cases in the States purely run on the PAE basis. So presumably it's quite a barrier to innovation. It's a barrier to businesses just want to get on with their day job.
No, you're absolutely right. A couple of great points you were saying there worth highlighting. In the United States, 88%, nearly 9 out of 10 of all patent litigations that happen in the US are brought by these NPEs. Given the economics of the day and the other priorities, most operating companies just don't have the budget or desire to be suing their competitors with their patents. That's why 88% of all patent litigation that happens against high-tech companies is brought by these entities. It is the number one source of patent risk for any high-tech company. And I'm using high-tech in the broadest sense. It just means if your company is using technology of some kind, a website, it could be open source. If you have an IT backbone, if you have a warehouse that's using IoT, the more and more technology any company is using, the more at risk they are to these lawsuits. And it's becoming in the US just part of the cost of doing business. If you look at the large high-tech companies in the US, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year dealing with this litigation. And it's just part of business these days. And what's ironic is, I know you mentioned in theory, some value does go back to the operating company that sold the patent. But I think it's good to do a little bit of level setting these days. I know back in the day when I was even filing patents, when I was at Motorola, we thought, and it's common to think that patents are worth about $1 million a piece. Certainly, if you look at the Nortel sale, when Nortel sold its patent portfolio for $4.5 billion, they just got over $1 million for those assets. But it's time, I think, for a reality check. Here's a couple of data points. AST, for example. AST is an organization of high-tech companies that get together and basically engage in bidding wars to try to buy patents before they fall into the hands of the NPE. Or last year's auction, they spent about $3.1 million of their own money, of these companies' money, and they bought 64 patent assets on the open market. That breaks down to about $48,000 per asset as the going price for these patents. So it's not like millions of dollars are going back to the companies for innovation. It's tens of thousands of dollars. And so that's why this is such a lucrative business. Lawyers can partner with venture cap private money, buy patents on the cheap, and you only need a couple of settlements for all of a sudden you're in the black making money off of this. That's the real amazing part of it, because patents are one of the few things that have actually gotten cheaper in value. As you see in the last year or so, the high-tech industry has gone through a bit of a recession. A lot of companies are actively selling off patents right now in order to save money or to generate some cash. And there's an oversupply of patents right now on the open market, which is driving down prices.
It is amazing to hear about patents being talked about in quite such a commodity kind of terminology. As somebody who, takes pride and joy in drafting a beautiful claim of one patent, to find that prices are being driven down because there's a surplus on the market, it's heartbreaking.
Well, most of us are parents. We think our children are the smartest and best looking. And as patent attorneys, we think our patents are the most valuable, but you don't have to take my word for it. So compare the Nortel sale. That was in 2011. Those patents went for $1 million a piece. Today, you can look at the BlackBerry portfolio. BlackBerry is trying to sell about 40,000 assets, same technology space. That deal is struggling, and they can't even get $20,000 per asset as part of that sale. And that's just 10 years later. And that is due in large part to all the things that the high-tech industry has done to try to weaken patents in the hands of NPEs so they don't cause the high-tech companies as much harm. And that's actually a great source of frustration for companies in like the pharmaceutical space. And that was actually a big motivator for why Bayer wanted to join Lot. Bayer doesn't really suffer from the NPE problem, but they're more frustrated with everything the high-tech industry has been doing to weaken the patent system. They'd rather see companies get together and solve this issue through this private ordered solution.
And that comes back to the policy point again. We're seeing, IP being used in a way that the system's not designed for, and not surprisingly, it's damaging the system. It's bad. Sorry.
Can I ask a question there, Gwilym? You've given me a little segue. So I'm sat here thinking that usually there are three legs to a tripod, hence the name. And I think, and that I'm the kind of like I can ask the silly questions because not being an august IP professional like yourselves, I can chip in and ask these questions. So I've heard so far in this session is I've heard the issue being articulated by Ken. I now understand what patent trolls are and the actions they're likely to take and the consequences of those. I've heard about the network and how that kind of big ecosystem can provide support and immunity. And I'm sat here thinking, is there another debate that's happening? Is there a debate that's happening about legal reform? So should we be talking about advocacy for stricter patent laws and reforms, or are we quite happy with the system as it is, preserving the rights of patent holders, and we suffer this and we just need to work our way through it? Where's the network on that debate, Ken?
Yeah, and that's why I think Lot is growing as fast as it is, because all of these companies have kind of just come to the conclusion that this problem can't be solved through advocacy, through policy, through changes in the law. Historically, there's a tug of war that happens between the pharmaceutical industry and the high-tech industry when it comes to things about 101, statutory, software patents, injunctions, and et cetera. And you also have to balance the interests of others in this ecosystem. And you don't want to cause collateral damage and disincentivize the individual inventor or universities who are highly vested in research and developing innovation. Okay. And I think the practical solution is, if you're in the United States, which yes, I am American, we can't even manage to elect a Speaker of the House. The likelihood that in the United States we're going to be successful at getting any more patent reform, I think, is very unlikely, just because it feels like Congress, we have an election coming up, the Supreme Court doesn't seem interested in taking any more patent cases. The reality, I think, is there isn't going to be any solution on a policy or in the law in the United States, at least. And quite honestly, most high-tech companies don't really want it. I mean, since it's companies that are causing the PAE problem, companies would rather solve it on their terms and conditions rather than having legislators who may not be familiar completely with how patents work, changing the law in a way that would hurt universities or pharmaceutical companies or the individuals.
So yeah, because I've heard tales of that along those lines, that there's no way of getting the right definitions in place that you can pick out that problem without basically without collateral damage of other kind of innovation models that are much more innovation driven, but don't necessarily make stuff basically.
No, very true. I just don't know what they've been staring at this problem for 20 years. People way smarter than I have been working on this, and they can't seem to come up with a solution that keeps everybody happy and doesn't cause that unintended collateral damage to some constituents of the IP community.
The level of sophistication underpinning the model is amazing, and it's the sort of thing that, with all due respect, these things always start in the States. You guys are always just ahead of us on these kind of stuff. And there's a lot of it, I'm sure, is to do with the kind of, the legal system within the US, the high legal costs, the high damages and whatever available, and so on. Plus, I guess, some uncertainty around jury systems or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's worrying as a European to hear that with the advent of the UPC, we might be looking at some of the other dysfunctions of a system. Like, that was definitely not in the minds of the designers of the UPC when they made it.
No, for sure. And we're trying to speculate what's going to happen in the UPC, but I think independent of that, any business operator has to think globally. You have to be coming up with an IP strategy, not that just works in the UK or works in Germany or just works in Europe, but your business very likely, just given how companies are setting up their manufacturing, how global sales organizations are running, you have to now develop an IP strategy that thinks globally. So independent of what happens with the UPC, you may be buying or selling product in the United States. Your company might be a risk to its supply chain for products coming out of China. And so when developed as an in-house counsel or outside counsel advising a company, you have to ask yourself, what is my global IP risk, not just regional? Interesting story about one of our members, Coca-Cola joined a couple of years ago. Coca-Cola is a proud member of LOT, obviously US-based company. They weren't that worried about getting sued by NPEs in the United States. If you ever been to Texas, everybody in Texas loves Coca-Cola or Diet Coke. So they weren't worried about standing in front of a jury in Texas against an NPE. But what really worried Coca-Cola was, in light of the geopolitical environment, about being a foreign defendant in a Chinese courtroom. There's no telling what might happen if, as China's patent system continues to get stronger and stronger, what's going to be the outcome of getting sued by NPEs in China or in Europe. So you really have to think, becoming an IP attorney, maybe you should have paid attention more in history and political science when you were in school, because now you have to think about these geopolitical factors when you're developing your IP strategy.
So you've got an interesting background. You just told us a whole bunch of high-end businesses that you've supported, advised, and worked for. You are now heading up CEO. You deserve an award, even if you haven't got one yet. Don't worry, it's on the cards. But you know work for a not-for-profit organization. So what drives you? Why are you personally doing this?
Well, for one, maybe I'm a bit of a geek, but I was a Boy Scout as a kid, and we were always taught in Scouts that you leave the campground better than you found it. And so I've been an IP attorney. I've been very blessed to have opportunities and do things at all these organizations. And I really do feel like this is an opportunity for us to make the patent system stronger. Maybe it's a bit too personal, and you can edit this out if you like, but I'm actually a cancer survivor myself. I'm a survivor of cancer only because a drug company invested lots of money doing research, coming up with a cure for my particular cancer. And that cure only exists because of the investment that these pharmaceutical companies had. I believe in a strong patent system. I want my kids to be motivated and inspired to create things and innovate and feel like your ideas can be protected. I've seen the patent system, and my gray hair might show it. I've seen the patent system lose a lot of its strength and value. Patents aren't worth today what they were 20 years ago. there's a lot of uncertainty that's been injected into the patent system. I worry that I know it frustrates the folks in the pharma world, but it just frustrates me because if you're the head of IP at some small little startup who's putting all their eggs in this one basket, and is that head of IP going to feel confident that the patents they're filing are going to be successfully used to defend their business against their competitors? And unfortunately, there's just so much uncertainty that's been injected into the patent system, all because of what's being done to defang the NPEs. I'd much prefer a world where everybody's in lot. We're making it as free as we can for everyone. Let's solve for the NPE issue on our terms and conditions and allow the patent system to heal itself. Let's go back to a world we can have strong patents that truly protect innovation so that companies are want to file more patents. Outside counsel can file those patents. They can license those patents, litigate them against their competitors, and have confidence that, yeah, we can truly protect your innovation. You can't do that with a weak IP system.
Thanks so much for that, Ken. We're coming close to time, but I've got one more question for you, if that's all right. And then Gwilym and I usually have this kind of like totally off the wall question to end with, and I've got an off the wall question as well that you need to be thinking about. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, so you can't think too much about it. So first of all, then, before we do that, so SEPA we think of our members as being sort of like two different types of attorney. We have our members who are in industry, many of them running large industrial departments, and then we have our members who are in private practice. Many of them either running or in large IP firms, or who have gone off on their own to run smaller firms. So what would be your two takeout messages? One for the attorney in industry, and the second one for the attorney in private practice.
So certainly for the in-house attorney, learn about Lot Network. Talk to Gwilym, talk to experts, talk to your peers. We've got lots of companies in Europe that are already members. I've got a colleague, Anthony Gaffney, who's based in London. He's available to answer any questions that folks might have.
If only we had him on the podcast.
Anthony who? Hang on a minute.
Anthony who?
Someone else here.
Hello, everyone. That seems like a nice segue and introduction. My name is Anthony Gaffney. I've been about 7-8 years in the IP legal game, and not an attorney, but should be knowledgeable enough to answer any questions, and I welcome all of them.
And thank you for just hanging in the background there, Anthony, awaiting that moment.
So Anthony's been being my wingman for a while, so he really understands the agreement. One of the, I guess I call it an advantage, when a company joins law for that in-house lawyer, everyone is signing the exact same agreement. So whether you were Bosch or BMW or a small little startup, everyone's signing the exact same document. For as much as I love a good debate and negotiation, I can't even modify it. So everyone should take comfort in knowing everyone's making the exact same commitment to join our community, and take some comfort in that. Because I think as an in-house lawyer, you want to get immunized. You don't want to be the guy or woman whose company is being sued by an NPE in Europe when you could have gotten a free license to that patent. These companies don't want to waste hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars defending itself when it could have gotten a free license. So for in-house lawyers, joining Lot should be a no-brainer, but I absolutely appreciate the fact this is a new concept, and you may have questions, and it takes a while to get comfortable with the idea. So we're patient fishermen. For outside counsel, I think they're the ones that need to be the shepherds here. They're the ones that they're the ones that most companies rely on as the experts to know what's the latest and greatest in the law and trends. And I think outside counsel needs to take time. Anthony's glad to meet with them as well, learn what the agreement is, and they need to take responsibility to advise their clients. When a new drug comes out and your doctor says, hey, you should take this new drug, the doctor is responsible for knowing it inside and out and advising their patients. The same here. I think outside counsel needs to understand what Lot is and be in a better position to encourage their companies of all sizes to join, because the NPE problem affects anybody using technology. It could be green technology. It could be environmental technology. It could be open source technology. It doesn't matter. NPEs will sue anybody of any size in any industry. And I think outside counsel are in the best position to really protect their clients. And they don't want their clients getting sued by NPEs. I know it might sound tempting to have more business as a defense lawyer, but actually the more money you can save your client, the more likely they are to be successful, the more patents they're going to want to file, the more offensive licensing work they're going to want to do. And so outside counsel should really look to partner and help their small clients particularly endure this problem and grow successfully.
Brilliant. That's absolutely perfect answer. That made entire sense to me. The next one might be a bit more difficult though. So here we go. Okay. So this is the closer. We do this before we can say goodbye. So we started off, and Anthony, you're also welcome on this. So don't think that you can hide in the background.
He's gone on mute. You can
I saw that.
I'm here, but Ken is will provide a much better answer than I will. But sure, go ahead.
Yeah, you have no idea what's coming. So we started this with me thinking that patent trolls were hairy, scary monsters living under bridges. Okay. So Gwilym, first, what mythical creature, animal, whatever it might be, would you want to be and why?
Oh, Kirin. The Kirin. You know the Kirin, the Japanese beer?
Yeah.
Kirin's a Japanese mythical creature that's meant to defend Japan or something. It's made up of...
Tell us a little bit about it. It's not one.
I'm going to Google really quietly while I'm talking slowly. I know it's got a bit of a lion in it or something like that. And then it's got maybe an eagle. Part of it's an eagle. That's really important too. And then something like maybe a dragon. And then most importantly, tortoise.
It's got a tortoise in it.
Yeah, I mean, just from nowhere. But I mean, actually, wow. you put a tortoise together with a dragon, play the respective strengths, and you actually got quite a serious mythical beast. So it's as if I was prepared, like I wasn't, but I've actually thought about it.
Yeah, just to make you were in there so quickly. Ken's looking terrified. Go on, Ken. What would you do?
I wish you gave me more of a warning, and I would have stretched and been more prepared for that question. But what comes to mind first is a Pegasus. I want to be a Pegasus. At my age, you have to run to stay in shape. I hate running. So I like the thought of being a horse-like feature that could run fast. And then when you're fed up with running, you just fly to your destination. You don't even have to run. So I kind of like that multitasking that Pegasus offers.
That sounds cool. Anthony, come on.
Well, I will conform to the stereotype. I'm Irish.
I know. Okay, we know where this is going.
But I actually used to make leprechauns, believe it or not, cold cast porcelain leprechauns. So I guess I'll conform to type.
Oh, well, thanks everyone. That's lovely.
Lee, come on now. No, Lee.
Okay, so mine's a bit dark, Gwilym. I would be a vampire. I absolutely love the whole concept of vampires. Most specifically, I'm a big fan of Bram Stoker. So for me, it's all about Dracula, the novel, and that being the greatest romance, I think, ever told. So it's the kind of like the romantic side of it and the kind of search for eternal love and all of that kind of thing. So I'd be a vampire, mate.
Can you imagine what a great alternative to the Avengers movies we'd provide with that team?
Be a formidable threat.
Ken, Anthony, thank you both so much for coming on. It's been a really cool podcast, and can't wait to get it out to our audience. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hello to everyone in Europe. I look forward to meeting you soon.
And Gwilym, I will see you on the next one, mate.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you all.